Yo, what's going on, homies? It's your boy StumpD back for another OPTC video, and in today's video, we're doing a PvP meta guide for you guys to take a look at what's going on in the PvP meta after the Gear 5 celebration, taking a look at what teams work best in the meta, what teams I like to use for generic play, and what teams work best against their opposite or their advantageous type. Now, in PvP, it's very Pokemon-centric, right? Strength beats Dex, Dex beats Quick, Quick beats Strength. Then you have Psi and Int, which are kind of interchangeable. But what Dex teams can beat Strength teams? What Dex teams can beat Psi teams? What Int teams can beat Quick teams? So we're going to break it down in terms of what's working really well in the meta. I'm going to try and give you guys some substitute ideas. However, the downside with substitute ideas is that sometimes when you lose a particular unit, the whole team kind of crumbles. Now, I did make a PvP tier list. Make sure to go check that out. I'll try and leave a link in the description and a card at the top of the video. You know what? I'll try and put a link right here. My editing's not great, so don't hold it against me if I don't. But hopefully it is there for you guys. So you click on that and go have a look at some substitute options that may work if you are missing some units. But just be mindful, if you do bring those units in, the team might not work to its full capability. So, enjoy the video, belt the like button. If you're new to the channel, or you're coming back, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It helps me out a great deal. If you enjoy PvP, let me know in the comment section below. With that said, let's dive in to a meta guide of PvP. Remember, this is PvP. Grand Party does come into it a little bit, but more for PvP's sake. We're going to kick it off with Strength, and the top team you guys see right here is the team that I stereotypically like to use when utilizing Strength, and the team down the bottom here is my team that I stereotypically like to use when I'm using Strength against Dex. So for my primary Strength team, which is the one that you see up the top here, Kuma is an absolute beast in the front line. His ability to just kill 2 units is so damn good. PvP Marigold is exceptionally powerful because she gives a lot of options for this particular Sandersonia. And if you don't have this particular Boa, it allows this Sandersonia to still work off the bench. Boa is an incredibly powerful unit too, though. Her Confusion effect and her Bind effect is incredibly valuable. But the main reason I use her in the front lines of my Strength team is she's giving a lot of defense and HP buffs to the team. Kuma and Kid are your 2 damage dealers for this particular team. Both of them have the ability to ignore defense, and both of them hit incredibly hard. Both of them give attack up to Strength, and Kuma stops the blow away, so that way you can just like continue your attacking rampage. Jack is basically your staple in the middle. He gives a level 6 HP buff to the entire crew, and for 30 seconds he gives level 2 defense up. I think it's actually higher. I think the database isn't exactly right. But with his special, he does a huge HP cut and he gives more defense up. So the idea here is Jack's giving a HP cut, Marigold's giving you speed, attack, so these 2 are hitting very hard, and then Boa's just giving you a little bit of bulk, so that's why you can survive out. The team rocks an 8-man team, so you have a very strong bench. You have Sandersonia, you have King for the damage he can output, and Sasaki on the bench as well. And the team actually works really, really nicely up against not only Strength, not only against other teams, but it also works really, really well against Dex. Obviously, the only team you want to really stay away from is Quick. Like, Quick is going to absolutely melt these particular teams. And can be very, very annoying. If you guys don't have units like Marigold, you can bring any of these units into the front besides maybe King, but you also have the option of Law. PvP Law is another really good option. You have PvP Kaku, who's an exceptional unit as well. And either of those characters can definitely slip into the front lines. Next, we've got the Verse Dex team, and this particular Kaido, Super Tandem Kaido, makes it very, 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 very damaging against Dex. As you can see, we have basically a full striker lineup. You don't really need X-Drake on this team, but he's definitely replaceable with like Marigold in the front. You could easily run the new Kanjuro is a really, really good option. He'll work exceptionally well. Or you could bring, like I said, Marigold to the front and then run Luffy Yamato on the bench. Like, that's another option for you. Jack, again, he's your staple. You have Sasaki again for Sasaki in the front lines now because he buffs strikers, which this whole team actually is, and then Kid is another one of your damage dealers. So this team here is pretty much tailor-made to take down Dex, mainly because Kaido is so incredibly powerful at halving the stats of Dex units, as well as doing just like a bunch of damage. Now, Dex is still actually insanely strong nowadays, and there is a very good slasher team that goes around that actually takes it down, but I'm going to highlight that a little bit later in the video. But with Kaku and Toki, K-Dad, Odin, you can do some really, really cool stuff there. But this is the strength striker team, and like I said, this is the one that I go to when versing Dex because of the combination of Kaido and the combination of X-Drake. I'll be very interested to see how Kanjuro actually works on this team too, though. But as you can see, you can get action blind to Dex with X-Drake, plus he does massive HP cuts as well. So that's strength. Has had a real big rise recently, and is incredibly strong from what compared to what it used to be. Next, we have the monster that is Dex, and Dex just has been ruling the roost for a very long time, to be honest. It's not as far-fetched as it once was in terms of being like the best of the three primary colors, but it is still very, very good. Now, the team that I stereotypically like to rock looks a little bit like this. With the release of the new Big Mom, this team just shot to the moon. She has the ability to give half stats. She buffs Dex completely. She's a driven powerhouse unit alongside this Blackbeard, so you can actually bring Dofi into the front lines a little bit more comfortably now, and that way you're actually getting a lot of buffs to the entire team. But with the addition of Big Mom, this team is so freaking powerful. Luffy is still your staple. He gives you that ability to revive. He applies a counter to himself. He does a lot of damage, and if you're below 50% HP, he can give a 100% chance to cooldowns at one unit. Pell is actually insane. You guys know how good Pell is. Giving buffs to Powerhouse and Dex, so Big Mom and Blackbeard are all getting very, very strong. If you want to as well, if you think that Doflamingo isn't going to get the most effectiveness out of being in the front lines, you can always drop him to the bench and then bring Dalton into the front. Definitely an option for you guys, as Dalton is a powerhouse unit, which means that he's getting the buffs there. But Dofi's really cool because Dofi gives a buff to driven units, level 6 attack, so that way your Big Mom is hitting really, really hard. He also gives a speed and defense buff to Dex as well, so he's still giving stuff to the team, and this way it will always mean that Dofi is in around that sort of 50-second mark. Oh, sorry, the last 45-second mark, where he can get that second shot and do a lot of damage. Blackbeard is absolutely fantastic at level limit break 4. If you guys have this guy at level limit break 4, please use him on your Dex teams. He's so good. He gives a monster HP cuts to quick unit teams. He just decimates them. But if you're going up against strength characters, he also does fixed damage to them as well as quick. He's just so good. If you have him level limit break 4, please use him and get back to me about how much you're loving this character. As for the bench, very, very strong units in obviously Sobermask being powerhouse. Dalton is an option here, and then you have King. But for Dex, they have a plethora of different options that you can use. Like I said, bringing Dalton to the front, dropping Dofi to the bench. You have other legends you can use. However, those other legends are stereotypically good against Quick. And this is the team that I like to run down here if I'm versing Quick. Blackbeard, as I mentioned just before, does monster HP cuts to the whole team, but then does fixed damage to Quick units. As you can see, does to Quick and Strength. Dogstorm, as long as you have a Cap Viper, and a Cap Viper, as long as you have a Dogstorm, are exceptionally powerful against Quick. They basically just decimate the team. Like, it's not even fair. You also have Moria. Moria is another really, really good option for this team. The PP Rare Recruit Moria. You can easily slide him in on the team if you're missing something like Dalton. And then you can push Dalton, or you could even drop Dalton to the bench. You don't have to run, if you say you're missing Dogstorm, you could just run Cap Viper and bring the 20 cost free-to-play Dogstorm. But the final piece of this puzzle is a Verse Yamato. Verse Yamato is incredibly strong when versing Quick. She gives defense down and CT reduction to Quick units. She's like a must on that team, as getting that cooldown reduction versus Quick is actually very, very valuable. I stereotypically run this team here when I'm going up against the Quick Free Spirit team, as you need a lot of damage output and they have a tendency to stall out. Just be still very, very careful of the Quick Driven team, because it can definitely be a huge problem when taking that on. Speaking of Quick Driven, that's the team I like to use when we are using Quick. Now, Quick have flown under the radar. They used to be like the best team in the game once Kaido was running around going absolutely ballistic. But nowadays, they're not exactly the creme de la crop that they once used to be. So, They're still very good with their HP cutting, fixed damage, dealing shenaniganry that they can do with stuff like Akainu and Shiki, Kanjuro, Tesoro with all that fixed damage. However, nowadays, it has sort of taken a seat in the back burner for just a little bit. But as you can see, the top team here is the one that I stereotypically like to run. We have Akainu. He's basically a staple on any quick team. If you're running quick, Akainu must be there. It doesn't matter what you're versing. He is the one unit that you just do not change. If you're running quick, Akainu has to be there, and if you don't have Akainu, just don't run quick. Shiki with his level limit rake is exceptionally powerful. He does really, really good stuff for quick int and dex. He can also give fixed damage, which is the big reason that he's here. Fuji is kind of a staple as well. Chucking him in the middle slot is just so valuable. His special gives massive buffs. Defense and guard, meaning you take very, very limited damage. He does quite good damage himself, and you can do some really, really good stuff with this Fuji. Next, we've got Kanjuro. Kanjuro is another fixed damage dealer. He buffs Driven and Striker teams. Level 5 attack up and defense up is great. He also gives a CT buff to himself, so he goes off very, very fast. The fixed damage is really what you want because Akainu is always giving himself so much cooldowns that he will stereotypically go first. If you're versing strength, he just absolutely decimates him. Any strength unit just melts under Akainu. And then you can have the rest of these fixed damage dealers come in. Tesoro, another very, very good unit. About to get his 6+ as well, as of me recording this. His 6+ gives him a little bit of extras. If you have him level in Rake 4, you're going to be in a really, really good spot because the damage he does and the defense up he gives is so valuable. Then for your bench, you've got a very interesting variety of units here. You have Blue Jam, you have Porkamy, and then I like to use Dofi. Because this team becomes quite driven-centric, everyone on it is actually driven. Doflamingo has a tendency to work really, really well here. So if you guys don't have these really good nukas of Blue Jam and Porkamy, you can bring Dofi up here in this like spot where Blue Jam is. Hell, if you don't want to run Kanjuro and you want this team to be more offensively, just bring Blue Jam into the front lines. If you're missing Kanjuro, you can easily do that. And then you have Dofi off the bench just going absolutely ballistic and giving some really good buffs to Driven. If you're versing Strength though, stereotypically you want to bring units that are going to hinder strength drastically. As I mentioned, Akainu being the staple does very, very good damage against strength. He does 30% HP cut in the first 30 seconds, and then he does 2 times his attack in large rate of range to everyone. And then if you're versing strength, he does a further 1.5. So very, very good stuff. And then if you partner that up with Sugar, Sugar is giving level 9 CT speed down to strength, and then yourself level 6 CT up. So for the first 20 seconds, Sugar is going ballistic. Ideally, you probably want to run her in the middle slot because she's just going so friggin' disgusting that her ability to just nerf strength is so good. However, once that 20 seconds goes out, you want to get rid of her. You want her to be out of the picture, and you want one of these damage dealers to come in. Izo Kiku is insane as well, doing damage. They're another really, really good unit if you're versing strength. And stereotypically, this is the team that I will stereotypically run to actually take them down. Sometimes you don't even need Izo Kiku. They're just a really good option. You could just bring something like Fuji into this front line here, just for straight up damage anyway. But Shiryu is an amazing unit, giving more cooldowns, giving more attack, giving more damage against strength. And then Tesoro, he just gives so much cooldowns. He does fixed damage as well. It works great. And again, you have Blue Gem and Porkamy here. If you want, bring Blue Gem into the front. If you want, bring Porkamy for more fixed damage. So this team works very, very nicely against strength and is yet to really struggle too much against it, except for some of those weird jankier strength teams. Moving away from the primary colors now, we can move into the Psy and Int stuff. And Psy is the flavor of the month. Psy Free Spirit has become Bandai's new Int-driven powerhouse. Because for some reason, they've just decided to send Psy Free Spirit to the absolute moon and just give them so many buffs. Mainly with this particular unit right here being Monkey D. Luffy Gear 5, 6+, and the 6-star. And honestly, both of them feature very, very nicely on the Psy team. But stereotypically, I really like to run this particular Psy team up the top here. It is completely Psy Free Spirits, besides obviously our bench at the back here. But Psy Free Spirit are so damn good. With the addition of this new Luffy, it makes all these other characters really, really powerful because he gives level 6 attack, level 6 defense, level 6 speed, level 6 crit, and then has the ability to revive himself at 100% HP one turn. So slap him in the middle, let all the damage come his way, because it doesn't matter how much he takes. Roger Whitebeard kills him, he's just going to revive and he'll be back. Odin and Yamato combination is still insanely strong, and with the release of this Luffy, it got even stronger, because if this combination has a tendency to whiff, This particular unit is stereotypically killing one character anyway, which can break the pieces of the puzzle or just take out a unit that these two units actually don't. So Odin just does massive damage. Obviously, he buffs Free Spirit and he buffs Sai, so the synergy on this team works exceptionally well. Yamato can halve stats, so then Odin goes absolutely crazy. Rebecca Toy Soldier, they're fantastic with their buffs to Sai, and obviously being a PvP rare recruit allows you to bring your cost down. And then finally, I really enjoyed the resurgence of 6+ Goldie Roger. His ability to give defense early, give attack and speed basically for the first 2/3 of the fight, and then bring in CT speed for the back end is so good. But the real reason I love him is because of his fixed damage and all of the debuffing he does. Level 10 attack down, level 6 defense down, level 12 speed down is so good, because once he goes off, it allows these two characters to come back very quickly and not take too much damage from the opposition. This level 12 CT speed down is so good if it goes early, because it stops the enemy from popping their specials off and allowing them to just take down pieces of your puzzle. However, like I said, this Luffy reviving is so great because it turns this 5-man frontline into a 6-man frontline. So a unit like Zoro that goes for defense, a unit like King that would stereotypically kill your entire team, Luffy's going to survive, and you are going to do good bits there. Obviously, you are still in jeopardy of just like that King shot hitting everyone and just being in a really bad spot. But the ability to reduce the speed that Roger provides is a really, really good counter to that. Strutzel on the bench, he's kind of here in case that like something goes wrong and you do lose like a crazy unit early because of, say, Roger Whitebeard. Strutzel has a really good passive for side, giving speed and defense up. Because again, these 3 damage dealers, if you lose 2 of them, you're gonna be in not a great spot. But if you lose 1 of them, it's really not that detrimental to the team anymore. Especially if that one is Luffy, because he's just gonna come back. Smoothie gives CT speed at the back end. She can do damage, and then King, he's just like, you can replace anything here on this back-ended bench line. However, if you guys are coming up against a more driven powerhouse int setup, this particular side team does stereotypically tend to work a little bit nicer. Yamato kind of got replaced, which is kind of wild to think about, because Yamato's ability to give half stats is so incredibly valuable. But this particular Gear 5 works exceptionally well on the side team. Again, he has an ability to revive, but it's only 50%. He gives level 5 attack, defense, speed, and crit up to Sai units. And then he does fixed damage, and then he does 1.5 times his attack and damage to ignore defense. And then you combine that with like Odin's damage, action binding, Rebecca Toy Soldier's nerfing, and then Kuzan and Wano Law. These 2 units are so good on the side team because they give cooldowns and they reduce cooldowns, so you're going a lot faster than the enemy. But on top of that, you're doing a lot of fixed damage. Level 5 defense and CT speed reduction to int characters is so damn valuable for the next Odin and Luffy special that is coming in. Well, not so much Luffy, because Luffy ignores the defense, but mainly that Odin shot. Plus the fixed damage is really nice. It can sort of pick off what's left. Law does fixed damage too. He also reduces a bunch of defects as well. And then you got like the combination of the Smoothie, Strutzel bench once again. If you guys want as well, another really good option for this bench is just to run the really good int bench. That works quite nicely. But unfortunately, Sai doesn't really have too many options that can kind of work nowadays. Unlike Quick that has like Orochi and Kaido that you can kind of slide into teams. Sai doesn't really have all that much besides what you're seeing here. Wano Law can work on this top team here, but there's no one really you can replace besides Roger. I guess if you're coming up against int, int driven, you could easily just bring Wano Law over Roger to get that CT reduction. But look, I've been finding that Roger's actually been working a lot nicer. Speaking of int though, this is stereotypically the team that I like to run for my int team, and it's more of an int-driven kind of setup, to be honest. Mainly because we have Fuji there. However, if you're versing Sai, it goes completely different. So, the int-driven meta looks a little bit like this. If you guys don't have a Pooh, another really, really good character for this is just to bring Tesoro. Tesoro is just fantastic, and you can even bring Shiki across as well, as this entire team sort of boosts Driven and int more than it does actually kind of boost int, really. Scratchman Pooh is great against Sai, but on a int team, especially int-driven team, he works exceptionally well regardless. He gives CT speed up, which makes him so valuable. He also gives speed, and then he debuffs Sai. Kid is great because he can give HP and defense up as well. And then whenever he does a hit, he gives level 2 attack up to driven characters. He's special, does a lot of damage, and he has the ability to 100% silence Psy characters. So if you're coming up against stuff like Odin's and whatnot, you can just bring Kid, and Kid will actually just silence them. You can easily just bring Kid in this particular bottom team as well over something like your Rogue. That'll actually work too. I actually didn't realize it was only on Psy units. That might change things for me. I actually might bring Kid down here somewhere into this particular lineup. Fuji Hibu's driven. This whole team is driven. He gets buffs from Uta, and he gets buffs from Kid a little bit, but his ability to just tank is so valuable that just bringing here and him here and letting him die so then these back-ended units can come in is actually super valuable as well. Moria basically always goes first. He has stats, he has HP, he has defense. He's so good. Like, he's so good, and he is your must-bring for your int team. If you're running int, you must bring Moria, no matter what it looks like. And finally, you have Uta. Uta has the ability to halve stats anything that's not defense. She can give herself CT speed whenever she takes damage as well, which is so valuable. Up to 4 times. She gets up to level 8 CT speed and level 8 attack up, which is crazy. Smoker on the bench is nuts, and then you have the giant combination, which is crazy as well. So, int has come a long way, especially int driven. And it's just continued to rise, as once upon a time, like, int powerhouse was so nuts. But you have stuff like Jozu's and all these other units that you can bring. But stereotypically, this is the int team that I would like to bring. Sometimes I will drop off Apudo and I'll bring in Tesoro, and because Tesoro just works really, really well. But that CT speed and speed buff that Apu gives is very, very valuable. I understand a lot of people won't have Apu, but bringing Tesoro is basically just a straight replacement for him. If you're versing Psy though, Apu's not replaceable. Like, Apu does so much damage. He's so goddamn valuable. And then if you run him alongside your Rogue can actually give the level 3 CT down to Psy as well, which is great. He gets HP and defense up, plus he does so much damage to Psy. The only downside is they never really see this guy's special goes off. He always gets a special one or something ridiculous. Katakuri is another really, really good option at giving level 5 CT speed down to Psy. He's another driven character as well. But now that I've just sort of read Kid, you can easily just bring Kid over one of these characters. Probably over Katakuri nowadays. I mean, he's giving like a lot of debuffs to Psy, where your Rogue's only giving a lot. So like, you could easily bring Kid, probably bring Kid over your Rogue, and that way you're sort of buffing the driven meta as well with Kid. Conus is another really, really good debuffer to Psy, inflicting level 2 defense down, speed down, guard down, paralysis, action bind. Like, you're doing so much against Psy with this unit. Plus, she got a level limit break, so she's very, very good if you have her with a couple of dupes. And then finally, we have Moria once again. The bench sort of remains the same because, like, the bench is so strong. You can take that bench into other teams as well, and it just works so incredibly valuable. So that's int works very, very nicely, especially in Grand Party. It's been a dominant force in Grand Party. It's been very, very hard to deal with. Moving into the fun stuff now, we have some class-based teams. Now, Free Spirits, Slashers, and Strikers are really the only offensive teams, I believe, in the meta nowadays. Cerebral, Fighter, Powerhouse, Driven, Shooter, they all do exist, but they exist in a very different way that doesn't involve just straight attacking. As you guys saw with, like, Dex, my Dex team is very Driven-centric. Quick is obviously very Driven-centric. Int is very Driven-centric as well. So Driven has a place, but it stereotypically has such a place within certain colors rather than what the Slasher, Free Spirit, and Striker team are actually providing. Shooters work great defensively. They can rock offensive, don't get me wrong. I just don't think they have a place in the meta. Cerebrals have a very, very good defensive team and can definitely nerf Free Spirit. You can use them offensively, but like, they're not exactly super reliable, and honestly, I don't think they have a place in the meta. And then finally, Fighters seem really, really fun and really cool on paper, but again, they just don't really have a place in the meta. Powerhouse is super janky, and Powerhouse and Fighter are so connected that I sort of put them together. Powerhouse Driven is also super connected too. So the three we're focusing on today are Free Spirit, Slasher, and Striker, and we're going to start it off with Free Spirit. Now, Free Spirit came out of the woodworks with Anniversary and just tore up the ranks as probably one of the best PvP teams in the entire game. This particular top team that you see here is my stereotypical Free Spirit team. However, lately, I've been opting more for this particular team down here. This particular Free Spirit team goes absolutely ballistic. The defense you have, the tanking ability you have, the CD reduction with Sanji, the damage output you have with Luffy Yamato, and the counter mechanic you have with Zoro is absolutely nuts. Luffy Yamato in the last 50 seconds there's no stronger hitter. This unit goes absolutely ballistic. The last 50 seconds. They do 3.5 times their attack to all enemies, doing 3.5 times attack again to all enemies, and then picks out one unit with the highest defense to it that it will ignore defense and do 2 times their attack and basically just kill them, which is just absolutely nuts. They give disgusting passives as well. Level 5 attack and defense, level 6 crit and speed, and in the last 50 seconds, they give a level 3 CT buff to the entire crew, which is nuts. Partner that with the CT reduction that Sanji can give, giving a 30% reduction to free spirits whenever there's a Luffy on the crew and he uses his special, is kind of nuts. He has a shield as well, so you can rock him in the middle. That way he takes a bunch of damage and you can just sort of feed off that. And then he gives the HP speed buff to free spirit. And then finally, you have Zoro in the center. He has the ability to revive with 50% of his HP. If you have a Luffy on the crew, he gives level 5 speed and blowaway buff to free spirit, but he gives level 6 HP defense and guard. Like, that's the greatest defensive combination you can get, and level 6 as well. Plus, if he dies, he just comes back. If you're below 50% HP on his special as well, he's going to give level 5 attack and defense up to all free spirits in a medium radial range. If you have a Luffy on the crew, he gives level 6 attack to himself, and if you have a Luffy on the crew, he gives a 4 times counter for 30 seconds, and he provokes, which means that all normal attacks have to hit Zoro. He hits back with that counter, and he hits so damn hard. He gives guard, he gives defense with his special as well, and he's just an absolute defensive juggernaut. I have seen Zoros just take down a team, like a 5-man team, just one-on-one with Zoro, just through their normal attacks and his counter. Finally, we have the combination of Odin and Roger. Roger just gives great nerfing, Odin gives great damage output, and that way you can run Rebecca Toy Soldier on the bench because they're free spirit. They also boost Cyan when Rebecca Toy Soldier comes in. If Rebecca Toy Soldier is buffing these 2 units, it works incredibly well. So that's the stereotypical free spirit team that I like to rock, but with the release of Gear 5-6 Plus came a huge buff to free spirit, and I have been leaning more towards this particular team, especially if I see Driven or Powerhouse. Now, as I mentioned at the start of moving into the classes, Driven and Powerhouse, or Driven especially, is littered across 3 separate teams. Dex, Quick, and Int all have so many Driven characters, and with this particular setup, you can take them down fairly easily because of Kid Lore. Luffy is great, but Kid Lore just melts Driven Powerhouse. They give level 6 attack, HP, and speed to free spirit and Driven characters, but then they also inflict level 5 attack and defense down to Driven Powerhouse characters. Their special gives another level 5 defense down to Driven Powerhouse. 50% chance of paralysis is kind of whatever, but then they do 3.7 times their attack in damage to 3 enemies with the highest HP. Fortunately, if you hit a unit that isn't a Driven Powerhouse with this, you're not doing as much damage, but it's still incredibly valuable to have. You have that core again of the defensive powers of Zoro and Sanji with cooldowns. Odin's doing all these damage, but then you have Luffy. Luffy has the ability to do 5,000 fixed damage to enemies in a large sideways range. He gives attack up. Then he does 2 times his attack to one enemy that will ignore defense with the highest defense. He gives a crazy passive to free spirit. Plus he revives just like Zoro does. Now, if you come up against, say, like a striker team that's very Driven centric, stereotypically I'll see something like Roger Whitebeard on that team. Roger Whitebeard will bink this team for basically the crazy damage that it does. Hit Zoro, hit Luffy, both of them revive, you come back, and basically that Roger Whitebeard special is now negated. Like, it doesn't even matter, because you have all your specials ready to go. This combination works so well, and then you can run something like Gene Bart, the new PvP Gene Bart, on the bench. Now, I don't have this Gene Bart, but I just wanted to sort of showcase him. If you're using a Law on the crew, he gives level 8 defensive down to all enemies in a large radial range on his special, and if you have a Law on the crew with his passive, he gives CT reduction as well. So he does exceptionally powerful things. He also debuffs Psy. He buffs Driven. So you can do some really, really cool stuff there if you want to try and build a Driven team with Law and Kid. But like I said, Driven sort of have that more powerful meta of being scattered through other colors. Team that everyone knows and loves, though, is Slashers. Slashers, once upon a time, were so broken in PvP that they had to release characters that just purely counter Slashers just to stop them. And that was because of Roger and Odin. Odin still exists on the Slasher team, but Roger, not so much. And the reason that is because Roger Whitebeard is a thing. Roger Whitebeard is honestly, if not the best PvP character still going around. And if you're building a Slasher team, this unit must be on it. And it's what makes the Slasher and the Striker team so powerful with offense, because this unit goes absolutely ballistic. The unit has the ability to just kill 2 characters. They give a 30% HP cut with their special, and then they target 2 characters with the higher that it will ignore defense, that does 2 times their attack, and it'll basically just kill. Like, it basically just kills things. It's ridiculous. Level 5 attack and HP up to Slashers, and then they buff Cyan Int. Now, this team isn't Cyan Int, but it really doesn't matter all that much because Roger and Newgate, the buff that they do and what they do for the team is just so valuable. Shank's crew is all of your defensive prowess. They sit in the middle, and once that 70 seconds hits and their special goes off, they're giving level 9... Oh, no, what is it? They're giving level 10 defense up, which is crazy. They do an attack buff as well to the crew, and they also buff HPs for slashes. They do a HP cut too, which is great, which means these other units can go absolutely ballistic. Odin gives CT reduction, and that's what makes him so great on this particular team. But he also does fixed damage and a bunch of damage. K-Dad hits 5 times for the amount of damage that they do. You have a Odin on the team, so you get more defense here. And then Zoro, I love running this Zoro. He has the ability to, again, go through ignoring defense for one enemy after doing a bunch of damage. And he gives attack, speed, and HP up to slashes as well. However, if you want to run this team differently, you definitely can, because Zoro is kind of replaceable here. You can use something like Cracker, you can use something like Kizaru, and make this team really, really fast. You can use something like Carrot Wanda, you can use something like Bardo Cavendish for some more bulk. The Slasher team, you can use Neko and Inu as well. The Slasher team has got a lot of different options nowadays, and depending on how you want to run it. However, I would highly recommend Roger Whitebeard is a must, Odin, K-Dad, they're a must. Shank's crew, honestly, they're kind of a must too. Speaking of another sort of build for it, and one that I sort of touched on earlier, was that Strength Slasher build that you guys can put together. It has some different variations with stuff like Toki, with PvP lore as well. And you can make it just straight strength. However, a lot of people opt to run this particular build when going up against Dex teams. Dex teams are so freaking powerful. If you have Kaku level limit break 4, you have the ability to reduce defense and you reduce their CT speed as well. That allows your Roger Whitebeard to always go first. Odin goes after that. K-Dad goes after that. Shank's crew's already at that 70-second mark. And this team just gets sent to the absolute moon when versing Dex. Stereotypically, most people will run this particular setup, and with Big Mom and those other craziness that decks have, this team actually works very, very nicely, but Slashers have an abundance of variation and are one of the most fun teams to run in PvP. The final class team is honestly the class team that shouldn't work because it has not full synergy like the rest of them. However, they have an abundance of PvP rare recruits that allow you to bring a variety of characters on your bench or a different diverse front line. Now, Roger Whitebeard, once again, just allow a lot of attacking prowess for this particular team, but characters like Marigold, Hina, Sasaki, Kanjuro, the PvP rare recruits that strikers have allow you to just expand on what characters and what legends you can bring for the team. So stereotypically, there are 2 striker teams that run around in the meta, and they tend to look a little bit like this. Roger Whitebeard, like I said, is a staple, but the first team utilizes Kuzan and his level limit break buffing Psy units and quick units, being Tesoro, Hina himself, but then also getting the buffs from Roger Whitebeard to buff Hina and Kuzan. So it works fairly nicely. What you can actually do as well is if you really want to, you can bring Kanjuro into the front with this team, take Jack off the team completely, and then bring in Luffy Yamato on the bench, and just do some really, really fun stuff that way. But stereotypically, Jack is just such a good unit. HP cutting is great, and then you get the fixed damage of Tesoro and Kuzan to come in. You have action binding from Hina and that as well. And then you have such this like a driven-centric bench, so once they come in, they can buff Tesoro and then Tesoro's... And they can buff Tesoro, and then you're just sort of running a driven sort of centric lineup. But this team shouldn't work the way that it does, and it just works. But it does work so damn nicely, and has so much damage output thanks to Roger and Whitebeard. As I mentioned, you can bring Kanjuro into the front over something like Jack, and then use Luffy Yamato here. That way, Luffy Yamato has that ability to sort of just bink out big damage at the back end and just rely on having them come in the last 50 seconds to do some really, really cool stuff. The other team is more strength-centric. You're not really relying on Roger Whitebeard's ability to buff Psy, but you're bringing something like Sasaki to then buff units like Kid and Jack. Tesoro, again, is so good because you can get the cooldowns with Tesoro, and if you really want to, again, take off Jack, you can bring Marigold into the front, and then bring Luffy Yamato here once again. Luffy Yamato, again, in the last 50 seconds, there's no unit that does more damage than they do, and like I said, Roger Whitebeard binking units at the start, Luffy Yamato binking units at the end, means you can do some really, really cool stuff. If you want to drop Tesoro, you don't have Tesoro level to rank 4, that's another option. You can use Marigold in the front, however, the team will stereotypically be slower, and with this particular Marigold edition, it allows you to use something like Sandersonia. But the idea here is to use more strength-based units. And that way Sasaki's buffing strength and strikers, and Kid's buffing strength. And as you can see, both teams don't have that full synergy that what the Free Spirit and the Slasher team has. However, they just have such powerful units and an abundance of PP rare recruits that the team just works. And it works so damn well. It was tearing shreds in Grand Party with extra stats. It still works incredibly well in PvP Championship and has had a place in the meta for a very, very long time. But that's going to wrap up the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. PvP meta teams of, where are we? October 2023. I'll stereotypically do one of these after New Year's, most likely. It's probably the next time we'll see a big meta shift. But if you guys would like to see more of this sort of stuff, let me know in the comment section below. While you're down there, belt the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that good stuff for me. Most importantly, whether you guys are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.